In this video, I'm going to be modeling for you the properties of multiplication. So properties help us to be efficient and to help us see relationships and patterns within equations or things that we keep seeing over and over again. These can help us be more efficient, and they can also help us to think more flexibly about how to solve problems and how to work with numbers. So I'm going to talk to you about 4 of the properties that we will use and apply in 3rd grade, and then there's also a 5th one that we'll do later in 3rd grade. So here I'm going to start with the identity property. So the identity property is that if you see a factor of 1, then the product is going to be the other factor. So here I see a factor of 1, so the product is going to be the other factor. It's going to be 7. And the reason that works is because if I have 7 groups and I put 1 in each, I'm counting by ones 7 times. Same thing here, even though it's the first one and here it was the second factor, it does not matter. So here I see a factor of 1, so I know the product is going to be the other factor. And the reason that works is I have one group of 9, so I only have to count that one group and there's 9 in it, and I'm done counting. My product is 9. My other property is the 0 property. So this one is if I see a factor of 0, no matter where it is, then the product is going to be 0. And the reason that would work is if I have 0 groups of 4. So someone else might have 3 groups of 4, but I have no groups of 4. I have nothing. So my product is 0. Or here, I have 5 groups, but there's nothing in them. So when I go to join them, I'm not joining anything. So when I see a factor of 0, the product is 0. Now these properties are what we'll notice a lot and can help us be more efficient and a little bit quicker. These 2 down here are more applied and more about solving problems. So here I'm going to use a number story to help me with the commutative property. So here I'm going to use this story, and it's about Miss Pertee, and she has 5 groups of students, and she gives each group 3 pieces of paper. So how many pieces of paper did she give out? I'm going to use an array for this because it's really going to show very clearly why the commutative property works. The commutative property is always, if I see factors, then I can switch them around in any order that I want and still get the same product. So here I'm going to make 5 groups of 3. So I have 5 groups of 3 here. And now I'm going to see, I can look at it this way and see 5 groups of 3, many groups that are small, or I can look at it this way and see 3 groups of 5. So I have 3 groups of 5 going down or 5 groups of 3 going across. It's still the same number of dots. So I would like to think, you know what, I'd rather count by 5s than by 3s. I've been counting by 5s since kindergarten. So I'm going to change those factors around. I'm going to switch them around, and I would rather count by 5s. So I'm going to count 5, 10, 15. But I can also trust that if 3 groups of 5 is 15, then 5 groups of 3 is 15. So knowing one multiplication equation is going to help me with another multiplication equation. So the commutative property is very useful. And it again helps us see those relationships and shows that we can be flexible. Here's another example. So 2 groups of 7. Well, I like to count by 2s. So I would rather move it to 7 groups of 2. And then I can just count by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So I know that 7 groups of 2 is 14, which then I can trust that if it's the same factors, I'm going to get the same product. So I like to use the commutative property to help me count by 2s, 5s, and 10s because those are strongly embedded into our number system, and I've been practicing them ever since kindergarten. So I like to really look for those. Now I'm going to use this other number story to do the associative property. So the associative property is that if I see more than 2 factors, I can move them around. So it's very similar to the commutative property, but it's when there's more than 2 factors. Now the associative property is when I'm multiplying many times. So it's kind of a 2-step problem also. So here's my story here. Ms. Pertee put her students into 3 groups. She gave them 2 pencils every day. So right there I should see 2 pencils, 2 pencils, 2 pencils. That's 3 groups of 2. But she did that for 4 days. So this is what she did the first day. She had 3 groups of 2. 3 groups of 2. But that's just one day. She did that 4 days in a row. So she did this, 3 groups of 2, 4 times. She multiplied 4 times. So that's what the associative property is. So she did this 4 times. So then I would have to show that's the first time, the second time, the third time, and the 4th time. So the associative property works well when you notice that someone's multiplying something many times, or a few different things are being multiplied and joined together. So here, to solve the associative property, I can group factors in different ways. Now again, just like I said with commutative, I like to count by 2s. So I'm going to group 3 groups of 2. And I'm going to do 3 times 2 is 6. 3 groups of 2 is 6. And then I'm going to then bring down that last one. I can't forget about it. I still need to bring it down as multiplication. And then do 6 groups of 4. So I would then draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups of 4. So 6, 12, 18, 24. So 3 times 2 times 4 is 24. Now, the associative property is very similar to the commutative property. I can group them in different ways and still get the same product. So I could do 3 times 2 times 4 and do 4 times 2 first if I wanted to. And then see that that's 8, and then bring down that last one and know that 3 times 8 is 24 also, or use a strategy for 3 times 8 is 24. Now, if the factors are on opposite sides, then what I like to do is I like to move the equation around. So let's say that I had 3 times 2 times 4, and I wanted to group 3 and 4 together. Well, then I'm going to rearrange my equation. Still use the same factors, but move them around. So 3 times 4 is 12, and I would use a strategy to get that. And then 12 times 2, I would use a strategy to know that that is 24. So again, same product, and I can use parentheses or move factors around when I have more than 2. So associative is if I see more than 2 factors, then I can use parentheses or move factors around to group them and multiply those first, then bring the other factors down. So go ahead and use these strategies when you're noticing ones, or when you're seeing zeros as a factor, or when you'd rather count in one way than in another, or when you see many factors.